When people talk about movies that blend martial arts, comedy, and pure creativity, Kung Fu Hustle almost always comes up. It's one of those films that, even if you only saw it once back in the mid-2000s, it stuck with you. The original, directed by Stephen Chow and released in 2004, instantly became a cult favorite, especially because it mixed over-the-top kung fu fights with cartoonish humor in a way that no one else had really done before. So naturally, fans have been waiting for a sequel for years. And now, after almost 2 decades of rumors and teases, Kung Fu Hustle 2 is finally official. There's been a bunch of exciting updates, and even though details are still limited, what we do know has people buzzing. Stephen Chow himself is, of course, at the center of all this. He's kind of a legend in Chinese cinema. His career started with acting, and he quickly rose to fame before stepping behind the camera. By the early 90s, he was already directing, starting with films like Flirting Scholar in 1993, and then he kept making a name for himself with projects like The God of Cookery in 1996. But it was really in the 2000s that he hit a new level of international recognition. After the success of Shaolin Soccer, which blended martial arts and comedy in a totally unique way, he followed up with Kung Fu Hustle. That movie solidified him as one of the most creative filmmakers in the genre. The first film was centered around Chow himself, playing a petty criminal who finds himself caught up in the chaos of the Axe Gang. It wasn't just the plot that made it work, it was the combination of insane fight sequences, slapstick humor, and surprisingly heartfelt moments that gave the movie its charm. And because of all that, it became one of Chow's most popular films ever. So it makes sense that almost immediately after its release, people started asking, when's the sequel coming? The thing is, Chow actually wanted to make Kung Fu Hustle 2 as far back as 2005. He mentioned it back then, but his schedule got ridiculously busy. He's one of those filmmakers who juggles a bunch of projects, and each of them takes years of energy. So while he kept the sequel idea alive in interviews, it never really happened. Until now. Recently, Chow reconfirmed that the sequel is definitely on the way. This news popped up again while he was promoting his 2019 film, The New King of Comedy. He let slip that Kung Fu Hustle 2 was still in development, and that got fans hyped all over again. But here's the twist. He also explained that it won't be a straightforward sequel. Instead of continuing the original story directly, it's going to be set in modern times. That already makes it feel like a fresh take rather than just a repeat of the first movie. And to make things even more interesting, Chow said he probably won't star in this one. At most, he might make a cameo, but his focus is on directing. That news might disappoint some fans who loved him in the lead role, but it also opens up some cool opportunities. Chow has suggested that the sequel could have a female lead this time, which would be a big shift from the first film. According to reports, the movie will also feature a bunch of new characters and actors. In other words, he's reinventing the story world instead of just rehashing what we saw in 2004. And honestly, that could be exciting because it means Chow has a chance to flex his creativity again and maybe introduce audiences to new martial arts talent. So far, no official casting announcements have been made, which keeps everyone guessing. But knowing Chow, he'll likely pull from a mix of rising stars and seasoned martial arts performers. And since the movie isn't a direct sequel, there's room to build an entirely different kind of story while still keeping the same spirit. As for the plot, details are still unknown, but there are some hints. Because it's set in the present day, the story will naturally feel very different from the first film, which took place in the 1930s. Even though it won't continue the exact events of the first Kung Fu Hustle, it's still expected to carry that same mix of comedy, action, and heart. Chow himself has called it more of a spiritual successor than a direct continuation. So, fans should expect something familiar but also very new. And it's not like Chow has been sitting idle all these years. Since Kung Fu Hustle, he's been busy with other major projects. He directed CJ7 in 2008, Journey to the West Conquering the Demons in 2013, The Mermaid in 2016, and then The New King of Comedy in 2019. Each of these movies had his trademark blend of humor and creativity, and several of them were big hits in China and beyond. So while Kung Fu Hustle 2 has been delayed for a long time, Chow hasn't exactly been out of the spotlight. But that's not all. On top of the long-awaited Kung Fu Hustle 2, Chow has also been working on another exciting project, Shaolin Women's Soccer. If the title sounds familiar, that's because it's tied to his earlier classic Shaolin Soccer. That film came out in 2001 and was another wild mix of martial arts and comedy. Now, more than 20 years later, Chow is bringing it back in a new form. According to reports, the upcoming film will star Dilraba Dilmurat, a popular Chinese actress, alongside other big names like Zhang Xiaofei and Song Kang-ho. The movie is also linked to a television project, making it a bigger creative venture. Chow actually announced Shaolin Women's Soccer on his 61st birthday, which made the news feel even more celebratory. And while he won't be starring in that one either, the project marks his first directing gig since the new King of Comedy. A global talent search is already underway for it, so it looks like he's seriously investing in finding the right cast and crew. So, between Kung Fu Hustle 2 and Shaolin Women's Soccer, Chow has a bunch of exciting projects lined up. That alone makes fans feel confident that the wait has been worth it. Now, what does this all mean for Kung Fu Hustle 2? Well, because Chow is approaching it as more of a fresh start, fans should probably expect a movie that pays tribute to the original without relying on nostalgia alone. It's going to have that same mix of outrageous comedy and jaw-dropping kung fu action, but in a new setting, with a new lead, and likely some unexpected twists. Although some die-hard fans might miss seeing Chow front and center, his track record as a director suggests that the movie is in good hands. The other interesting thing is how the sequel will land with today's audiences. Back in 2004, Kung Fu Hustle felt like a revelation. It was different, bold, and hilarious, and it stood out because of its style. Now, 20 years later, film audiences have seen a bunch of action comedies, superhero blockbusters, and martial arts movies, but that might actually play in Chow's favor. Because his style is so distinctive, Kung Fu Hustle 2 could end up feeling refreshing compared to the more formulaic stuff out there. Well, that's it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time.